Top of the morning to you, and today we're showing you how we brewed our Irish Red Ale for St. Patrick's Day. Let's get started, shall we? Potato. All right. To make this Irish Red Ale, we're going to be running with 81.7% of ale malt, followed by 10% of Munich malt, light Munich malt, my accent's slipping, 7% of medium crystal malt, and 1.3% of roasted barley. Now, the whole idea behind this is we need to get the color red. So we need a lot of crystal, but to help us get that extra touch of the slight roasted flavors, we do need that roasted malt, but we're only going to use 1.3% because that color change is pretty significant and we don't want this to turn into a disaster brown ale all over again. Link to that one up there. But something we did learn from the disaster brown was that 3% of roasted malt goes a very, very long way. So I'm just going to back this up to 1.3. Should give us just a touch of character, just a touch of complexity and depth without giving us too much color effect. So all of this will go into the grain mill and then we can mash. All right, we are all crushed up. Now, one thing that I wanted to point out was I was tempted to use melanoidin malts like Redback, Supernova, Shepherd's Delight, etc. to just get an immediate red color, basically the cheat way. That's an alarm going off. But that felt too much like cheating. So we're gonna do this more traditional, and the traditional way to do it is with crystal malt and roasted barley. So we're gonna hope that I got these percentages right to actually get red color, not just darkish brown. We'll find out. Alrighty, and in the grains go. Now, the water chemistry for this one is going to be 62 parts per million of calcium, 5 parts magnesium, 15 sodium, 80 chloride, 60 sulfate, and 57 parts bicarbonate. If that water profile seems familiar to you, it's because it is, and good pickup. This is the same water profile as the brown ale, because despite the brown ale not really being a brown ale, it was more of a porter by the end of it, I really loved how that beer turned out. It wasn't what I was going for, but the beer was excellent. I really liked the mouthfeel that it gave. I liked that it emphasized a little bit more malt character rather than the sulfite, which is uncharacteristic of an Irish red. Typically, you'd have the sulfite higher than the chloride to help it kind of be a little bit crisper and dry out the mouthfeel a bit. But I like my Irish beers malty, so I'm gonna go the counterintuitive approach here. Something else I learned from our American friends over at Santa Fe Brewing when we did that international collab with them, that video is up there, is that medium crystal malt goes a hell of a long way to turning things red. I used 5% in that West Coast IPA recipe and it was already quite amber. This time we're using 7%, so I think we will be fine with the color. The challenge is actually gonna be keeping it light enough and making sure that it can clarify enough that you see it as a true red rather than like a burnt orange or like a dusty brown type thing. But already you can see that color change coming through. So let's hope we haven't made this one too dark. Let him cook! Let him cook! Breaking Bad, anyone? What am I looking for? My gloves. Where am I? Oh, they're over here. Where's my gloves? Gotta go ask my ma. Can't find my gloves. I'm allowed to say that I'm 25% Irish.
How American are you as well?
I'm very South American. All right. And on the top filter goes. So this was, for those of you keeping score at home, 15 liters of strike water. We are going to mash this at 65 degrees Celsius for 1 hour, followed by a mash out for 15 minutes at 77 degrees Celsius. We've actually gone relatively light in terms of the amount of grains to water ratio because we want this to sit around 4.2% to 4.5% would be nice. I don't need this to be boozy. I want it to be flavor packed, but I want it to be a beer that you can have many of, just as my Irish ancestors would have. So let's close this up, start mashing, and we'll see you at the end of an hour. And we are finished with our mashing. It is time to start the sparging process. The color is looking awesome. I don't think it's too dark. It does look very dark right there on camera, I know, but we're looking at, a lot of liquid together right now and we haven't sparged yet. So after we sparge, I'll take a sample and we'll be able to see our true color for this Irish red. I'm now going to run 15 liters of sparge water over the top of this, already added the salts and the acid into the sparge water. And the whole idea behind this, if you're new to brewing, is that you're kind of wringing out the sponge, getting those extra sugars that are trapped in the grains right here, so that we can get a little more beer for our buck. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We've got 2 glasses here. We're gonna do a pre-sparge sample to see what we're working with. And then after sparging, we'll take another sample and see how much color difference we have. That is dark. There better be a color difference because that ain't red. That is very, very dark. All right, I'm gonna pop that over here. Now we're gonna run our sparge water over the top. And then we should start to see an actual significant color difference between this, I hope. Moment of truth. What is the color looking like after the sparge? Ooh. I mean, it's a damn sight better than pre-sparge.
It does look quite red.
I think we're on the money. I think we're on the money. It's a touch, it's a smidge dark for your standard Irish red, but I wanted my Irish red to be darker than standard because I feel like sometimes they come out looking more a light amber than an actual red, and I really wanted to kind of lean into the darker red hue. I think that is gonna, I think we're on the money there. I think we're on the money. We'll darken again slightly after boiling, but we're pretty much on target. I don't mind that. I think the predicted Brewfather EBC was like 31 or something along those lines, so I suspect we're somewhere in that ballpark. We'll come back to you when we're ready to boil.
You got it on time.
Didn't get the boil over. My ma always said that when you start to see the bubbles rising, you gotta get in there quick. Quick, laddie. We're gonna take a little weir gravity sample, see what we're working with. I think the target for final gravity, I always forget to check what the targets are before I do this. I think the target for final gravity was like 1.044 or something, so I'm probably shooting for like 1.04 right now. And we are basically on at 1.041, so we're very, very near what our target gravity would have been. I'm happy with that. Okay, now that we are starting to get to that boil, let's add our bittering hop addition, which is going to be 20 grams of East Kent Goldings. This is going to give us 11.8 IBUs. Going to boil for 1 hour. In they go. Start your clocks. And I guess whilst we sit back and wait for that, it's as good a time as any for me to tell you, if you want to help support our channel, you can join our Patreon in the link down below or pick up some awesome Wombat merch like this. But if that's not for you, that's totally fine. But don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you get notified when we drop a new video every single week. Now, we'll see you at the end of the boil. We are now at our last 5 minutes of boil, so in go our next set of hops. This is 1 ounce each / 28 grams each of East Kent Goldings and Fuggles. Now, reason I chose the EKG is because, you know, British style of hop. This is an Irish beer. British hops are quite common in the old Irish stouts, old Irish reds, etc. Fuggles for the same reason, and also the name is hilarious. Yeah. So that's going to give us that's going to give us 6.8 IBUs now at this last 5 minutes left of the boil, at which point we'll start cooling down and getting ready for yeast pitching. Okay, it is now time to start cooling. So we are pumping through the plate chiller. We've got cold water coming in the opposite direction to the way that the hot liquid is flowing from the wort. Counterflow chilling with a whole bunch of copper plates in there, making a lot of surface area interaction to cool down and transfer that energy. So we want to get this down to about 25 degrees Celsius. I'll be happy with. A little bit colder is great, but I'm not super stressed because I'm going to be fermenting around 18 degrees Celsius. So yeah, anywhere in that kind of mid-20s, low 20s area, I'll be happy to pitch some yeast. Whilst we're getting a sample for gravity, let's also get a sample for color. That is not too shabby. Now, it's not quite as red-hued as I want, but it's also very turbid at the moment. So I have a sneaking suspicion, once all this clarifies out and settles after fermentation and we get this thing crystal clear, we should be looking at the very minimum amber. Hopefully, we're looking quite red. Interesting. We'll see how that plays out. That is one of the big... I needed that for the gravity sample. Yeah. That is one of the big reasons that, honestly, I really love using melanoid malts, because it really just is that cheat code for producing a red beer. But I kind of wanted to do this one more traditionally, and heavily modified specialty malts is not super traditional. It's something they had a ton of access to back when this was first being brewed over in Ireland. So it felt wrong to do it for this one. It felt like we should be going back to our roots a little bit more for this beer. All right, we are sitting at 1.045 on the nose. That is slightly over target. I think target was actually 1.041. So this will be around a 4.6% Irish red, I think. If so, very happy with that. It's between, 4 and 5, which is kind of the territory I was aiming for. And I've never seen an Irishman complain about a little bit more booze in their glass. So it's totally cool. Once this is cooled down, we'll pitch some yeast. Okay, we are now coming out in the high-ish 20s, which is fine. By the time we get the rest of this transferred over, the rest of the wort should be cooled down enough by the time it's passing through this counterflow. So let's go ahead and start the transfer. Yeah, that's plenty. That'll be enough anyway.
Nice.
Alrighty, we are done for the day. Now, let's leave that to the side. Give me a second, let me pick this up. Before we throw in our yeast, we need to eat our medicine. This right here is a RAPT Pill. We're going to be doing a full talk about this, a review on it, how it works, why I use it, what it does, etc. in next week's video. But imagine just an electronic hydrometer if you haven't seen one of these before. I'm going to throw this in, then we're going to throw in our yeast. It is now time to pitch our yeast. This is 1 pack of Safale SO4. I know that there are other strains that are probably better suited to an Irish red ale, but quite frankly, this was the only one that I could really get access to with the time frame that we had to make this video. And, seeing as it's an English strain of yeast, it's not a bad assumption to use this one. It's fairly clean fermenting. It makes a very packed yeast cake on the bottom, so it really helps to clarify the beer towards the end of fermentation, and it'll produce slight estery notes, slight notes of fruitiness, but it's not going to be that overpowering. So it suits the style quite nicely and lets the malts really shine. Now we can go ahead and close this up, and the next time you guys see me, I'll be holding the results of our labor. And here's the final result. Now I'm gonna stop doing the Irish accent because I'm sure you guys are absolutely sick of it by this point in the video, but here she is, and it's definitely red. I think it's hard to capture on camera how red it is, but I hope that light can kind of give you somewhat of an effect of what it actually looks like for us here in person. But what really is awesome is how fluffy and creamy the head is. It just hangs around forever, not unlike a Kilkenny, but the flavor is what really counts. It's so silky, so creamy and delicious. And it's got this complex sweetness. So unlike just throwing in crystal malt into like a West Coast IPA, you just got that caramel sweetness coming through and kind of pulling everything together. This sweetness is more interesting than that. And it starts as like sweet toffee and then borders further into like a burnt caramel. And I suspect the reason for that is because you have that roasted malt addition in there, that 1.5% or something that I threw in. It kind of has that burnt toast quality about it, in a good way, not a bad way. And then it blends with the sweetness to kind of make this deep burnt caramel type thing before it starts moving into a little bit of roasted, almost coffee, but not quite coffee flavors. And then the breadiness and the malty, like generic maltiness of the beer just carries away the rest of it. And it finishes quite dry actually, which is good. An Irish red should finish dry. It should kind of leave the palate quenched and make you want to go in for another. Like it's doing to me now. It's so good. It's an excellent beer. The Fighting Irish really know their way around booze, and I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. And the more of these I'm gonna have, the more this accent's gonna stick with me, and I'm not gonna be able to put it away. But before that does happen, I'll tell you that it came out to 4.7% ABV for those of you keeping score at home, which means, like a good Irishman, I can have quite a few of these and still be functional for work the next day. So I really enjoyed making this beer. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching this video, and cheers to everybody, and enjoy a really merry St. Patrick's Day for 2025. Prost!